All right, everyone, today's lesson, we are heading into the strange, very unique, and sometimes the dark world of the fungi kingdom. Okay, so what I would like you to do is to make sure that you have your characteristics of the six kingdoms, and we are working with our fungus kingdom today, and we're going to fill in all this chart. We should already have those other three recorded. If, for whatever reason, you don't have this from the Bacteria and Archaea folder, I'm going to stick this PDF inside the fungi folder and for those of you that don't have it yet, and you're gonna have to work and get yourself caught up with the other three kingdoms we've already covered. Okay, here's some notes, and I hope you enjoy learning a little bit about the fungus. Welcome to your introduction to the fungi kingdom, also sometimes known as the hidden kingdom. Throughout history, fungi have been regarded with great suspicion. People were wary of mushrooms that appeared like magic after a heavy rain. But in spite of leaving a bad first impression, these peculiar entities are subjects of great curiosity. The strange talents of fungi include the ability to luminesce. They have more similarities to insects than they do to plants, and they have been used in medical breakthroughs such as making medicines such as penicillin. Fungi have also been a source of mystery and folklore for thousands of years. Many ancient people believed that mushrooms were formed when bolts of lightning hit the ground. Other people thought they were created by witches or evil spirits, and you could catch a disease just by touching them. Others believed that fairy rings, which are these places where mushrooms grow in circles, were dangerous places where elves danced and toads met. These ideas all seem to come from the ability of mushrooms to appear out of nowhere. Let me show you a simple video of how quickly mushrooms can grow from the ground. Granted, this is time-lapse footage, but some of these processes only take a couple of hours in some cases. Have you ever gone to bed and woken up the next day to see mushrooms growing in your yard? That shows you right there the desire for the mushroom to grow and reproduce when the conditions are just right. Video shows a great example of the different variety of fungi that are out there. Now let's keep in mind, underneath the surface of the soil, you have this mycelium. Mycelium is what the fungus actually is. And then when mycelium get the right environment, when the water's just right and the temperature's just right, that mycelium underneath the soil finds its way out of the soil and grows the mushrooms. Those mushrooms you can think of like the fruit of a tree. Now, when those mushrooms grow to a certain point, when they're mature, then they release their spores, and those spores turn into more mycelium, and that cycle continues. For a while, most people thought mushrooms as vegetables, but this really isn't true. These organisms belong to their own kingdom. They are as different from plants as plants are from animals, and in fact, they are more like us than they are like cucumbers. So here is a picture of mycelium here, and these fungi are eukaryotic, all of their cells having nucleus. They are a more complex organism. Most fungi are unicellular except for yeast, which are single cellular. And here is a picture of that mycelium in a cross section of the soil. You can see the mycelium underground. Whenever that ground becomes wet and the temperature is just right, then the mushrooms will grow from that mycelium in order to produce more spores. Fungi do have a type of cell wall, and that cell wall is made of chitin. Chitin is a very hard substance, mostly is found in the shells of many insects, that exoskeleton that insects have. So fungi are more related in that way to insects than they are to plants. On to how fungi obtain energy. Fungi are heterotrophic. They use other organisms for food. They are decomposers, which means they break down dead and decaying organisms. So one way that they obtain energy is by breaking down and using dead and decaying organism as their source of energy. Another way that they obtain energy, there's a fantastic picture for you, is that there are some parasitic types of fungus. Yeah, parasitic means they attack living organisms and then they use that organism for food. What you can see in this picture is a picture of someone who has athlete's foot. The foot and in between toes is a nice dark, moist, and warm environment, perfect for parasitic fungi to grow. Another way that they obtain energy through being parasitic is attacking organisms such as insects. This type of fungus is known as a cordyceps. This cordyceps will invade insects, and they will live inside that insect until it's mature enough and then it needs to reproduce, in which at that point it will burst from that insect and spread its spores out to hopefully infect new insects. Here is a video that'll show you how this type of cordyceps fungus infects ants.
Incredibly, 80% of all insects live in jungles. Few are more successful than the ants. There can be 8 million individuals in a single hectare. But jungle ants don't have it all their own way. These bullet ants are showing some worrying symptoms. Spores from a parasitic fungus called cordyceps have infiltrated their bodies and their minds. Its infected brain directs this ant upwards. Then, utterly disorientated, it grips a stem with its mandibles. Those afflicted that are discovered by the workers are quickly taken away and dumped far away from the colony. It seems extreme, but this is the reason why. Like something out of science fiction, the fruiting body of the cordyceps erupts from the ant's head. It can take 3 weeks to grow, and when finished, the deadly spores will burst from its tip. Then any ant in the vicinity will be in serious risk of death. The fungus is so virulent it can wipe out whole colonies of ants. And it's not just ants that fall victim to this killer. There are literally thousands of different types of cordyceps fungi, and remarkably, each specializes on just one species. But these attacks do have a positive effect on the jungle's diversity, since parasites like these stop any one group of animal getting the upper hand. The more numerous a species becomes, the more likely it will be attacked by its nemesis, a cordyceps fungus.
Let's talk about reproduction in the fungus kingdom. As you can see in this picture, that is a puffball mushroom, and that puffball mushroom is giving off spores. And spores is the main way that fungus reproduce. Each one of those spores in that cloud of smoke will land and will hopefully land in the right conditions in order to grow and become a new organism. So reproduction in the kingdom can both be asexual with the release of spores, but it also can be sexual, where the spores of two parent fungi will fuse themselves together. And when that happens, we get ourselves a variety of different types of organisms. You can see from these pictures I'm showing below the vast variety of the way these organisms look. Let me show you a quick video of how spores are released in the fungi kingdom. The habitat for most of the fungi kingdom is mainly terrestrial. They mostly live on land. There have been over 100,000 different species identified in the fungi kingdom. Some examples that you will find in the fungi kingdom of course, your mushrooms, your single-celled organisms like yeasts, and your typical molds that you'll find from food that has been laying around that a fungi spore has landed on. Now, molds in the United States is usually spelled M-O-L-D-S, whereas in other countries it's M-O-U-L-D-S. That's a wrap for the fungus kingdom. A pretty unique kingdom. For a long time, funguses were thought to be plants. They were thought to belong in the plant kingdom until scientists did more and more studying and realized these organisms are unique enough and different enough that they need their own kingdom. So what I would like you to do, your job is to finish up this chart if you haven't done it already. Like I said, this PDF is inside the folder if you need it. But the other kingdoms, archaean bacteria as well as protists, should already be taken care of. So if you're not done with those, you're going to have to go back and finish those up. Okay, get that done, and then your assessment today will be a few questions using your chart in the form of a quiz.